Sapian Haryo Seto, Member, National Economic Council, Republic of Indonesia. Please come to the stage. Mr. Jim Lennon, are you here? Next, I'm going to proceed with Mr. Daniel Sharpin, Strategic Marketing Director from North Nickel. Next is Mr. Edric Cole, Head of Corporate Sales Asia, London Metal Exchange. And last but not least, our panelist, Mr. Mark Shelby, Chief Executive Officer and Director from Canada Nickel Company. Okay, we're still waiting for Mr. Jim Lennon, analyst from Papyri. Okay, we're going to proceed. And now, Ms. Camilla, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests from the government and the administration, colleagues from market research, colleagues from the industry, it's a pleasure to be here. When I was asked to chair this panel, I was extremely delighted because I thought, if I need to talk about nickel, these are those people that I have to address with questions. We know that Jim is still missing, but let's say he's still missing in action because he definitely has some very important nickel talks. But without further ado, I'm going to start our panel discussion with directed questions, one question per panelist, and later on we will ask the questions that every panelist will be discussing, and we will have a free exchange between the panelists, and also at some point I will turn to the audience and I will ask for your interaction with the panelists. So I would like to start with Edric. Edric, the questions to you goes in the direction how the LME can maintain its role as the global benchmark for nickel pricing at the time when we have regional and also alternative pricing mechanisms that are gaining traction.
Sure, thank you, Camilla. It's a very deep question. Thank you, ICM, for the invitation for us to participate in this fantastic forum. And good to see all the familiar faces again here on stage since last year. Yeah, so for this question, I must say that the LME remains the world center for industrial metals trading. And we have been serving the market now coming to 150 years. In fact, next year we're celebrating 150 years anniversary. So, and users across the world continue to use the LME price, including nickel, as a global price reference. So I said probably there's just highlight three key reasons why the LME continue to play such a vital role globally and play such a vital role in nickel pricing. One is because the LME has very deep liquidity. We are a trusted, transparent, and neutral exchange with global access from anyone everywhere in the world. You want to have access to the LME, you can. So this deep liquidity can be, is evident in the daily volume that LME trades. On a day-to-day basis, we have over 800,000 contracts traded each day. Specifically for nickel, since we are nickel companies, we have 80,000 contracts traded each day. And that's almost 500,000 tons of nickel exchanging hands on a daily basis. So that's how deep the liquidity on the LME is. The second point is LME has a global reach. We have over 450 approved delivery locations in 32 locations globally, making it very accessible to anyone in the world to deliver or to take delivery from the LME in the most net consumption areas total everywhere. And last but not least, we have over 400 brands that's approved on the LME that is deliverable. Specifically for nickel, we have 26 brands And we welcome the participation from Indonesian producers. In fact, in 2025, we approved 2 new nickel brands from Indonesia. And there are many more prospects in the pipeline, not just nickel, but aluminum and all this. And we welcome and we help the Indonesian producers to come on board, the global change. So I think that's coming back to your questions. Yes, there are some other, price reporting agencies that talk about specific nickel or other nickel variants. But generally speaking, for nickel and also some of the nickel payables, many still use the LME as price reference, and also because it allows them to, have a hedging tool to manage the process. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you very much. I think you said it is a very deep question, but you managed perfectly within just giving the right condensated sample. Now I'm turning to sector. I would like to hear from you. What policy shift in Indonesia would most likely impact global nickel pricing? Export controls, taxation, domestic processing mandates, anything else that you can think?
Ms. Camilla, sorry to interrupt you, but apparently Mr. Jim's here and ready to join you guys. Okay, now proceed. Thank you.
Welcome to you, Jim. As they say, last but not least, and please be prepared to will be asked the direct question to you. However, the first one is September.
Thank you, Camilla. I think very happy for me to sit in this panel together with a lot of nickel experts. Jim is actually, I would say, the nickel professor of the world, and Jeff Davis as well is, I think, giving a lot of valuable insights as well to Indonesia. So I think if you are looking in the last, I would say, 6 months, there are a few things happening here. External and from domestically from Indonesia that affect the nickel pricing. I think the first one is domestically. I would say the first one would be the production quota control that we introduced last year. I know there is a lot of pro and contra, but from the government perspective point of view, I think we need to control this production because Indonesia holds 65% of the nickel production. And about 64% of global smelting capacity. So I think we have this, I would say, power to actually control the supply of the nickel market. We don't want to create surplus that is destroying the nickel price, which means that we are not getting optimal value for every ton of nickel that we produce. So this is actually part of this government consideration. So the production control is necessary. If we don't control the production, I think in 2026 we will create the largest surplus in the nickel market history. So we don't want that to happen. So I think this is first one. The second one is actually the change in this domestic minimum price. I think this is happening in the middle of April. And I think this is also necessary because domestic minimum price is used to calculate the government royalty. So change in this domestic minimum price to make it closer to the market price is necessary. Yes, there are some issues with the limonite. I think based on our calculation for the saprolite, the new domestic minimum price is quite close. So it will I think not create a lot of disruption in the market yet. But for the limonite, we realize that it's overshooting the market price. I think there are some discussion now actually in the market on how to deal with this issue. For example, you are still paying the royalty and tax according to the domestic minimum price, but the market price is actually used to do the transaction. So I think this will resolve, but also the government is also considering how we can create a better formula for this limonite. So this also affect the nickel price here. So before, I think I always say that the sweet spot for the Indonesian nickel is between 16 to 18,000 US dollar LME price. Now I think with all this increase in the cost, especially because of the royalty tax here, but probably close to higher than 18 to 20,000 US dollar. So we would like to see the prices moving in this direction. We do not expect, of course, the nickel price to overshoot significantly above 20,000, because I think that will create a problem for the end user of the nickel. The third one, I think the new government policy to consolidate the export. I think we'll see until the end of this year. I think for the nickel, I think the one that is impacted probably NE and NPI, because they are included the same HS code. So we'll see how this is going to be accommodated with the DSI, the new SOE that will handle this consolidated export. So I think this is the domestic policy that affecting the nickel price recently. You know, the nickel price now I think is closer to 20,000 US dollar. Externally, I think the one that is impacting us a lot is the war. The Hormuz war, I think, impacting the sulfur price. We are doing now the calculation now. Most of the HPA company needs to buy the sulfur at 1,200 US dollar, which I think significantly increase the cost of the HPA as well. But I think what I'm worried is also the availability of the sulfur. If this is continue until August, I think we will see more supply coming from Indonesia for the MHP. So this is something that also might affect in the short term the nickel price. So I think we'll stop here.
Super, thank you. I think that was already very condensed prognosis and explanation. I think the panelists will keep in mind from what you said the sweet spot for the nickel price, and I guess that they will dwell on it later on in the discussion. Yet a directed question to you, Jim. What would a more balanced and sustainable global nickel market look like, particularly if we consider Indonesia's dominant role in the supply growth?
Well, I agree 100% with Aksara. Indonesia has intervened to rebalance what was a disastrously oversupplied nickel market. If you look at the estimated Class 1 nickel stocks back in 2023, they were about 50,000 tonnes. As of today, they're close to 700,000 tonnes. So you've seen a steady accumulation in inventories. And the only criticism you would make of the Indonesian government is they didn't act earlier. They should have done it a couple of years ago. So, in terms of the wastage of Indonesian resources in the ground, the rates are declining, price was going down. It's having a more balanced market, and you can never predict the market balance, but so many things can happen. But it looks like we've got a situation now where a bit of rationality is returned to supply in Indonesia, and we are going to be more or less in balance. So whether it's going to be in balance next year or the year after depends once again on the continuation of the policies that have started this year. I was looking at the MHP, the HPAL. I mean, the projects out there are totaling up to 1 million tonnes of capacity, and the production this year is just over 400,000 tonnes. So I was canvassing people's opinion of what MHP production could be next year. They range from about 700 to 900,000 tonnes. So there still is that potential of oversupplying the market. In terms of sustainable, I don't know whether you meant ESG sustainable. I mean, clearly the stuff that is planned to come on is a much more sustainable product than MHP. It's got a very low carbon footprint. It relies on sulfur and sulfuric acid, which is providing the energy source for nickel. So it's got a CO2 footprint of plus or minus 10 tonnes of CO2, whereas the NPI and the matte that is produced from NPI furnaces got a CO2 footprint of 60 tonnes plus. So that production going forward, moving more into MHP is a desirable thing to do. And also you're mining the limonite ore, which sits on top of the saccharide ore. Limonite is for the HPAL process, and the saccharide is for the RKEFs, and so your deforestation is quite net zero. You know, you've got to get at these saccharide anyway. So for the HPAL, it's quite attractive. The only problem has been the tailings, and it looks like the major producers are now moving to recover iron and sulfur from the tailings. They've got technologies in place which will solve some of the major issues that beset the industry regarding disposal of tailings. So that is kind of the path going forward, is probably going to reduce the production of MAT, and it's going to get replaced by MHP. But as long as there is some degree of control of ore supply in Indonesia over the next 5 years, then it's a much more balanced situation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think you very nicely touched upon various elements that I believe we will later on implement and comment on the panel. Yes, direct question now to Dennis. Has the nickel market structurally shifted from oversupply to deficit, or is it too early to know?
Who knows? Definitely Indonesia does, because as Axel said, now Indonesia accounts for almost 2/3 of the global nickel market. And basically, supply discipline is definitely necessary to keep the market in balance, because Jim rightly said, there are some capacities that also to be built here in Indonesia, and it's a question mark whether that expansion of the capacity will be linked to the additional requirements of the nickel required in the market. I mean, if you look from the sustainability point of view, I would agree with Jim that it's more sustainable if Indonesia would process limonites and saprolites and push towards MHP, but at the same time, MHP goes into nickel sulfate production, and that's mostly used in the battery space. And here we see definitely that LFP, as of now, has won the race, and the ICM PCAM production consumption is not growing at the pace that everyone expected before. So if one anticipates that there will be no supply discipline going forward from Indonesia, it means that MHP and nickel sulfate will be just converted into the cathodes, and all that oversupply of the cathodes will be more complex. Yeah, I mean, as of now, I think more than 80% of the LME stocks consists of the products that were made out of Indonesian tea. So basically, all the oversupply that was created here in Indonesia over the last 3 years would put basically at the LME stocks. And I'm sure that the Indonesian government and players recognize that's it's a risk, and I'm sure that the efforts already been done, and I'm sure that those RTB water limitations that were announced in December last year and further in January this year. The government will stick to those plans, and hopefully the market will be in balance. Well, we had the IMG session in April, right? And with 270 million tons, we have estimated that the nickel market this year will be pretty much in balance. So if the actual production will be higher than that amount, then the market will be facing oversupply.
Thank you very much, Dennis. It was a very clear explanation. And the last directed question goes to Mike. We are hosted by wonderful country of Indonesia, and a lot has been said about what is being done in Indonesia with regards to the activities on the nickel market. But I would like you to tell us a little bit more on which project or regions outside of Indonesia have the greatest potential to also become a meaningful future source of nickel supply. I know your company has something in their portfolio, so please.
Yes, so to build on the first point that Jim talked about in terms of sustainability, I think all of us as nickel producers will benefit from a diversity of supply. We've seen with the Persian Gulf, if we depend on supply from one certain region for a critical commodity, so bad things can happen. So, in terms of other projects that are out there, with the movement of prices back up to the $20,000 ton range, there are a number of nickel sulfide producers globally that aren't dependent on sulfur to be able to get into production, offer the benefit of other byproduct credits, that can make them a cost-effective source of supply and as well allow them to be a low-carbon source of production. In particular, we firmly believe that the next generation of large supply are going to come from low-grade alternative deposits like what we have in the Timmins region in Toronto. We already have over 20 million tons of contained nickel identified and have the potential to double or triple the amount of nickel. The big benefit in today's economy is that, number one, we're headquartered in a place where we have access to low-carbon, low-cost electricity from hydroelectric and nuclear power plants in Ontario, so we won't suffer from all the volatility that we've seen in energy costs globally. And then number two is our deposits are hosted in rocks that spontaneously absorb CO2. And we've developed a process that allows us to store, for our flagship project, Copper, allows us to store up to 1.5 million tons of CO2 per year, which effectively gives us a negative carbon footprint. So again, looking forward to more sources of nickel coming. We've got sulfide projects, Life Zones here, with their project in Tanzania. We've got Centaurus in Brazil, and there's a handful of other projects in the pipeline.
Thank you very much. Diversifying supply from all over the different parts of the world is also important. And I will now drop the questions to the panelists. You will be asked to interact with each other. So diversification is one thing, but there is also one important aspect to make sure that the collaboration between countries is very important. And here comes the question, what do you think will be the impact on the nickel market from the recently launched Indo-Phil Nickel Corridor initiative? Maybe Sebastian, I'll start with you, and then the rest of the panelists, you just comment as you feel free.
Yeah, to be honest, I think collaboration is important, but it's easy to say than to be done. Now I think the way we are looking is, in the world we have two general views about this collaboration. The one that is, I think, countries who are willing to integrate their supply chain with China. For example, Indonesia, we have a lot of nickel. We have additional technology coming out from China. We are building our battery material capacity, EV battery, also come from China. Then you also have South Korea, Japan, that is also willing to integrate the supply chain to China. EU, for example, the latest plan by CATL to build the LFP factory in Spain is to show that the collaboration between countries who has the technology, who has the resources, and who has the market is actually working, and this is important to create the efficient supply chain. But on the other hand, you also have this another view, which is led by the US. They say that, okay, I don't want, or I want to minimize China's supply chain in my critical mineral ecosystem, which I think is fair. It's a US position. I think their view is that if because they have this geopolitical competition with China, so it's impossible for them to be depends on China on some of these important supply chain. But I think the problem is when you start to actually making exclusivity. For example, I want to create my own market whereby I will reward higher price for the countries or for the critical minerals that doesn't include supply chain coming up from my competitor, something like that. So I think this is, in my view, this is becoming challenging for us, especially for Indonesia, because we as a middle power, of course, we don't want to be trapped with US and China competition, but I guess in reality, most of the nickel-based battery would be consumed in Europe and in the US. But in the same time, also we need to have to get the technology, to get the investment coming out from China. So I think the flexibility for emerging market on this kind of collaboration, how we can think about efficient supply chain, how we can work together between countries to create this efficient supply chain, to be honest, is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, the flexibility. So it's not easy, but so far Indonesia, I think we are able to navigate. We have the agreement with the US, we also still have very good relationship with China, but what I can say is it's becoming more difficult actually to navigate.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any